I like the art style, it's an interesting concept, and things have come to an end. Let's take a little gamble. For like half of you. What's up guys, I love Pencil and here we are to do a review of Ichi the Witch, Chapter 1. This is a brand new manga series from I believe, quite popular Shonen Jump author. At least I've seen people mention this author before. I don't recognize the art style, so I'm not sure if this is an illustrator and mangaka thing, where there's a writer and then an illustrator, or something in between. I have no idea, but I did happen to read this first chapter on a pure whim based on really liking the art style. I really ended up liking the concept, and I think I'm going to add it. Do I expect anyone to watch this? No. In fact, I'd be shocked if anyone clicks on this video except for certain people who, luckily enough, are here by binding vow. And by binding vow, I mean binding vows with themselves. I love your dedication. But with it being the case, let's actually hop into Chapter 1 of Ichi the Witch. Editing me. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do mean to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. Today, another fun fact. I typically do not touch fresh-born shonen manga on the channel. I just don't. I don't know why. It's just like a bias that is innate to me. Like typically I like to hop on after the series has some time to establish itself and build itself up. It's why I didn't immediately start reviewing Saga No Days when it first came out, even though I remember when it first dropped. I did not immediately start reviewing Chainsaw Man. And admittedly that was very, very, very early on into the YouTube career when that first came out. But still, I existed. I saw it. It seemed interesting. I just didn't do it. But with it being the case, I want to take a gamble on this one. Because there have been a bunch of new shonen series that have been coming out. None of them really caught my attention because, things keep getting canceled or things keep ending as of recent. So naturally, Shonen Jump is trying to refill its catalog, and this is the first one that caught my eye. I read through the entire thing. I'm interested with the concept. I really like the art style. So let's actually hop right into it. So we open up and we do get to meet our main character, Ichi the Witch, the titular character. And I'll admit, their design, clean. Crazy how much of a spoiler it is, though. Like for the first chapter, but I do like how the chapter, or at least the initial chapter, is called First Hunt, and I do love the designs. Once again, I'm a guy who's heavily biased with art. Shock horror, my channel name is literally that guy with a pencil, and I'm looking, that's like 10 sketchbooks that are filled back to back, page to page, some double paged in terms of how much art I've done over the years myself. Yeah. So the story by Oshima Nishi and the art by Shiro Usazaki. Shiro Usazaki is already one of my favorite already one of my favorite illustrators. Off this first chapter alone, and I'm gonna look if I can find any of their other work, because something about it itches that perfect, beautiful part in my brain that rarely gets itched. Everything about the character design, for our main character to the side characters, or at least presumably what this is going to be the main mentor character, everything beautiful. Even the writing so far, I'm intrigued, mainly because of the nature of our main character. Mainly because this is like, well, not necessarily the first main character in a while. I have, in fact, been reading Kagurabachi, but this is a main character who opens up on the first page being about the business. Oh boy, I want to hunt them all. And yeah, we got a mad individual on our hands, but let's explain why. So ultimately, this chapter naturally lays the groundwork in the backstory for Ichi, our titular character, and explains how he became a witch and how he lived, how he grew up, how he existed. Now, one thing I will immediately admit, this chapter leaves a lot of stuff open. Honestly, it is one of the most, dare I say, refreshing iterations of a first Shonen Jump chapter, because it tells us kind of nothing, but has all the tropes of, hey, this is extremely vague information. We're not going to show any characters this character has any sort of relation to. They're going to be mostly alone in the world. They'll have a loose association with one town, and they're going to be extremely unique in their field. Why are all these things the case? We don't know, and it'll probably come back to bite us later. And I like that. And much as I love Kagurabachi very clearly laid out its premise immediately. It's a revenge story. They told you that in the first chapter. For even Jujutsu Kaisen, it's pretty straightforward, though admittedly a lot of stuff did come back to bite us later when it came to Jujutsu Kaisen. For something along the lines of Chainsaw Man, it also was pretty clear, but of course many things came to bite us back later. But ultimately, this chapter has me excited because I have no idea where the story is going. And of course it's the first chapter of manga, so naturally I have no idea. But still, I'm excited because we do get to see that Ichi is a character who likes to hunt. And notably, your boy's not a hunter. I may have read Hunter x Hunter, but I'm not a hunter myself, but I do like a character who does immediately have, not necessarily like, how do I put this? It's not like I like characters who are innately bloodthirsty, but I do like characters who are smoke demons, and very particularly smoke demons for the fun of it, for the love of the game, if you will. Notably, and that's ironic, because that's actually a double entendre, considering Ichi is a hunter who does it for the game. But with that being the case, the main thing I'm referencing here is Ichi's willingness to hunt for the sake of hunting, as that's the whole point. He mentions in the first page, I want to hunt them all, every last one of them, on some Fire Emblem. See, wow, that is a horrible brain lag. I know it's been 5 years, gosh darn it, but I should have immediately said Dimitri Fire Emblem. But ultimately, every last one of them wanting to be hunted by Ichi lays out the fact that he's in it for the love of the game. He wants to hunt for the love of the game. In fact, one of my favorite moments in this chapter is Ichi, very particularly, not even his backstory on how he was abandoned and came to hunt. The idea that he ran into an entirely unknown life form that he had no prior information on, took one look at it, realized that it was insanely powerful. As he admits himself, I could tell. It was a creature completely unknown to me. I'd never seen or touched it before, but I could tell. It was powerful, and it wouldn't hesitate to kill humans. So, what is his immediate, instantaneous, and absolute response? I took one look, and then turned and ran. I hadn't done anything yet. Probably, I hope. I couldn't say if it actually killed any humans, or even any other animals for that matter. Death through death. If they don't face me with the intent to kill, then I shouldn't desire to kill them either. Killing things doesn't mean you... Wait, killing things you don't mean to eat isn't hunting. It's murder. That's one line you must never cross. But if a creature does harm a human, if it does turn its fangs on me, if it does trigger death for death, I want to hunt it. That. It's the innate desire. Notably, I believe everybody has passions. Believe everybody has things they're innately interested in, and ultimately, I think the beauty of humanity is a variety of interests to a limited degree. Some people are interested in weird stuff. Don't be weird. Well, admittedly, I'm weird, but don't be weird. There's a difference. We all know the difference. Don't be weird. And I guess you could definitely argue, based on the nature of his own society, Ichi is most certainly weird. But the main thing I like is that this sets up for a character who will do things for the love of the game immediately. Because one thing a lot of characters run into is that they do end up doing things for the love of the game, but it's typically not in their character to do it for the love of the game. And half the time, there are characters who will be put in situations where they could do it for the love of the game, but since they don't have the love of the game, they will not engage with a certain scenario, which could be interesting. Ichi lays it out flat and bare. As long as someone threatens him, as long as someone wants to... then he's willing to go all out, all in, crazy with, and I'm down for that. It sets up an interesting premise. And once again, this whole world sets up an interesting premise by the beast immediately waking up. Now, admittedly, I'll have a little bit of complaint later, depending on how we go. Once again, this is just the first chapter. I have no idea how long this is going to run, but I've heard the name before of the author, never heard the name of the illustrator, but still. We ultimately see that a certain group of individuals has finally showed up to deal with this mysterious, amazing creature, this long-haired, shaggy beast, and it would be, in fact, witches. Naturally, the series is titled Ichi the Witch, so of course there are going to be witches inside of it. But with it being the case, we see a particular witch comes up. And now, I cannot pronounce this woman's name to save my life, but this is another epitome or example of sweet mother of mercy. The character design and artwork in this manga is fantastic. Now, of course, this is the first chapter, and naturally, every single mangaka goes super duper hard for the first chapter, so maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 chapters in, I'll be like, oh, maybe the artistic quality isn't that good. But at least for right now, they are cooking. This reminds me of prime Otaka Sensei. And if you don't know who Otaka Sensei is, they are the mangaka, author, and illustrator for the Magi series, for the Sinbad series, and for the Sinbad no Boken and Orient. And in my opinion, they are one of the most underrated mangaka of all time. Not just for their storytelling, not just for their character writing, not just for their world building, but also for their artistic ability. I've seen a lot of people complain about their art, and while there are definitely some ugly panels you can pull up, at least in terms of the characters' forms, the detail in their clothing, the reflection, Arana's the author, Usasaki Sensei, they are fantastic once again. And it's hard to design characters. It's pick up a piece of paper. And even for my artists out there, and you know what? I think it's easy. Obviously, for a person who doesn't draw or create things, it's easy to imagine that creating something would be hard. But like, especially for my creators out there, have you ever tried? My hand started cramping up. I did a lot of physical labor today, my bad. But have y'all ever tried to make something? Just straight from the dome piece. No reference, no nothing, no inspiration or anything. It's hard. And of course, there is the natural indication that, okay, we're making a series about witches. Here's how the witch should look. But still, fire artwork for the Descaras. I'm sorry. It reminds me of two different types of words. Descaras? I don't know. But the Abyssal Witch. You throw Abyssal in front of something and I'm immediately interested. But with it being the case, we see her pulling up Druid Mountain near the summit. And we get specific implications of this character pretty much immediately. The idea that, yeah, they're powerful. Obviously, you don't have a title like the Abyssal Witch and not be powerful. But they're also blasé, mostly relaxed, and kind of not entirely all there in terms of the commitment or engagement with the mission. And of course that does lead to some sort of conflict as Monagold the Orate Witch, which I don't, what does that word even mean? Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. There is a function going on in my general vicinity and I did need to record here and now. I hope I will do my best in editing to try and cut that down, but it is so loud, it is actually causing my left ear to hurt. So, let's see. Oration is a device in arts that involves gilding or directing in language that introduction of terms from another. Typically, a classical language is considered to be more prestigious. Oration is commonly involved in manners of rhetorical features and diction. I still have no idea what that means. But with it being the case, establishing Descaras as this type of witch and ultimately showing presumably the headmaster, very, very intriguing. I say headmaster for a reason because earlier on they introduced the idea that women, specifically only women, can go away to school in order to study, to become witches. But once again, she does appear on the cover page. She's the only of the two characters, or at least named characters that are like animals, plus a hypothetical third character that's sort of hidden based on what happens at the end of the chapter. But she's shown here. And I assume she's going to be very important. And that's good, because I like her design and I like her title, and she's apparently very, very powerful, as we'll see. Because we get explained the magic system, or at least the birth of the magic system in this universe. Apparently, in this world, magic is alive. Living creatures, living magic called magics, which is so funny, but living magic called magics first contacted humanity long ago. Out of nowhere, a talking blob of water appeared.
Hi, drink every drop of this water. Do that, and you'll acquire me, the water magic. That is my trial. Should you manage to pass it, I'll teach you the chant for controlling water.
So, that is intriguing. We get the idea that there are many different types of magics, all different types of living magics, and there are different varieties for these abilities. And characters can absorb different types of magics. And I thought at first they can just like consume each respective magic, aka the one with the J, not the one with the G. But no, just completing the task allows them to control the magic themselves after they complete the trial. The first one is consumption, but still, it's not all consumption. And we see that once this became commonplace, a bunch of witches were created, all with the ability to wield drastically different magics of all different varieties. And that's intriguing. Once again, this opens up the possibilities endlessly. And it's vague enough that I can expect basically anything. And notably, for an early series and laying the groundwork for that, that's very, very important. You don't want to restrict yourself early on. And by setting up the idea that there are different types of magics, there are endless amounts of magics, and magics can have various trials and backgrounds, I can see whole arcs based around acquiring individual magics. But speaking of magics, there is a one here, as we find out that the witches are there for one particular reason. That there are two monsters about to do battle, specifically Descaras and this beast, this creature that had not initiated death for death with Ichi and thusly was spared, as we'll find out, because we see that this particular magic recognizes Descaras. Why am I not surprised it was you who found me, Descaras? Are you that in love with me, you little stalker, you? No, gross. How about you just die already and let me acquire you? You egotistical excuse for a magic. So, that lays down interesting groundwork already. That shows the fact that these two have been chasing each other for a while. Now, we don't know how old Descardis is, we don't know how old this magic is, but ultimately the idea that they have some sort of bond is intriguing, especially considering the nature of what ends up happening to this magic. As we find out, this isn't just any old magic, as it laughs. You're making me blush. I gladly welcome all challengers. But do you think you can win? You face King Uroro, the King Magic. So, we already ran into one of the strongest. Maybe I hope he's not the strongest. I hope there are many King Magics, or like there are other magics of greater tiers, because I'll admit, one critique I do have is that we're open up real strong. As we see, in this world, magic is alive, and thus each magic has its own personality. Unfortunately, King Uroro was the worst type of magic. Once again, they mentioned type, so I'm hoping there are multiple creatures of his level and many beyond. I'm hoping, please, for my sake and the longevity of the series. But we only get to see he refused to allow witches to acquire him. He leveled mountains and drank rivers dry. He took countless lives for no reason. He was a magic who hated humanity. Ignore me, and I'll go on another murdering streak. I've lived far too long, you know. If I don't amuse myself with people, I'll expire from sheer boredom. But if you want to acquire me, my trial is to stop my heart. Simplicity itself, don't you think? Try it if you dare, witch. Pierce through all, Lazud. And they do battle. Notably, the battle does take place mostly off screen, but I do understand it, mainly because I'm assuming we do not want to reveal the true power of this character, considering Lady Descardis is likely going to be a major character, possibly the mentor character, maybe even our protagonist. It really depends on how Uroro, the King Magic, ends up playing out. But we see that ultimately, while Descardis was able to pretty much win the battle, to the point where she got her blade close enough to the King Magic's heart, he reveals the ultimate trick, the ultimate trap. Descardis, you must have sensed it by now. The feeling that something's off. Have you ever wondered how I've survived? Oh, over 1,000 years. So he is over 1,000 years old. Over 1,000 years without a single witch ever acquiring me. Let me enlighten you to the devastating truth. No woman can scratch my heart. That's just how it's made. You did well to push me this far. This was the most fear I felt in my life. So, this is interesting. Already, once again, because I've read a decent chunk of manga, and now I'm super attuned to groundwork laid, especially in early chapters, especially the first one. That's just how it's made. There's going to be some type of supreme magic, specifically with a J and a K. There's going to be some type that makes other magics. I can already sense it here, because why does he say that's just how it's made and not that's how I designed it, that's how this is based on my own choosing, that's just how it's made, meaning that he was produced, not entirely organically created. So question mark, keep that in mind for later. But ultimately, Descardis looks like she's about to get low diffed, body bagged, absolutely annihilated, as she realizes ultimately it was all fruitless. And we also, that's the thing though, this does remind me a lot of early JJK, because we get introduced apparently to possibly the most powerful magic and the most powerful witch pretty much immediately, as she says, or as he says, you may be the most powerful witch alive, but even you can't defy my rules. As long as you witches are women, you'll never acquire me. It's impossible. Once again, he says my rules, but just like we create computer programs and video games and they run by their own rules, just because he says my rules here doesn't erase the idea that he's not entirely organic. He may still be a artificial creature in some way, some shape, some form. But we see, as he laughs and chides Descardis for coming and losing her life to him like many witches before, someone else shows up. Very specifically, with that thing on him. He just like me for real. But ultimately, Ichi pulls up. And we see that both Descardis and Uroro are pretty confused, considering they, one, had the other witches tell everyone, don't come here, this is where the monsters are fighting. And two, these are apparently two of the most powerful creatures in the verse already. Will that hold true? Question mark. But apparently the two most powerful creatures in the verse, and this random just shows up in the middle of their destined battle. And ultimately, I'll admit, one thing I also am not the biggest fan of is because the sudden tone shift. I get it. Once again, this is a more balanced series, and this is mainly a setup, and we only have a couple pages left. But still, like, Descaros and for Descaros and Uroro to go from these crazy, chaotic, next level beings capable of flattening mountains and drinking rivers dry, which is already putting this verse at pretty powerful for a round start. Though of course, leveling mountains is interesting considering I guess he stepped on one. I'm not sure if that's actually a mountain, but still, it sounds all nice and cool and clean. It looks real cool and clean. Usaki Sensei does a fantastic job of drawing it all. To immediately switch to a more comedic angle is a little interesting, but I think it's purposeful. I think it sets up the kind of dynamic that King Uroro and our main character are going to have. Because when we're setting up the idea that magics can be absorbed, and our main character is a male, who specifically meets the exception criteria, I wonder what will happen. As we see that I do admit, I love how Ichi brought it up. It's like, I'm a man. Huh? I said, I'm a man. So let me get that heart real quick, real boy. And we see that immediately, and this is interesting, I'm assuming this is because Descaros did so much damage to King Uroro, but King Uroro does actually take the threat pretty viably, to the point where he does strike with a relatively decent amount of force. Of course, he's not leveling a mountain here, but he still does strike pretty effectively, only to find himself captured in a snare trap. And we see Ichi reveal, what the heck? Oh, a pit trap plus a snare. Try to pull out, and it'll only bind you tighter. It's not easy to get out of. Which once again fits into the idea that Ichi has traps laid all over the mountain, meaning he is a setup character, but he may not be for long. As we see that ultimately Ichi's like, I would say your guts out. You just show death for death. But we see that ultimately King Uroro's like, whoa. What do you think you're doing? Hey, let's not be hasty, okay? First, put the knife down. What are you looking at? All sparkly-eyed for? Hey now, don't get so close, all right? Personal space. I said put the knife down. Once again, I don't know, but it's set up well enough that King Uroro is mostly playful and deceitful, so I'll take the more comedic angle to it. Once again, it's something that'll look back on differently in retrospect. This is the first chapter of the manga, this is the first time being introduced to all these characters, so maybe the more playful air is meant to be, and maybe it's a general tone setter for the manga. As we see, ultimately, that at the moment that Uroro strikes, Ichi has been given the green light. Ha! You just tried to kill me. Death for death. You ready? And he immediately dives straight into the chest of Uroro and defeats him. Now, once again, I'm going to chalk this up to Uroro actually taking a decent amount of damage and fatiguing a whole lot from fighting Descanos, the most powerful witch alive, supposedly. But still, all of it, the fact that the King Magic gets taken out in one solid hit after getting caught in a stair trap, pretty embarrassing. But once again, we do need to have a facilitating incident, and we already did have the excuse that while these are two of the most powerful characters in the verse, they just have a relatively high diff battle where ultimately it does seem like King Uroro lost. So it makes sense that he'd be fatigued enough that he couldn't just, I don't know, level the mountain they're fighting on. But we see that ultimately, the instant that Ichi manages to slay King Uroro, he does get an immediate magical girl transformation. And once again, the fit, it ain't the cleanest, it's a little bit crazy, but the fit is kind of clean. From the cape flowing to the knife staying exactly the same, which is actually kind of neat, to the big puffy wizard's or witch's hat, to the heart designs, the heart motifs. Of course, as a Kingdom Hearts fan, this is just Usaki Sensei after my heart. But the design, absolutely fire. And we see that ultimately they don't understand, Ichi doesn't understand what's going on. Like, how is this happening? What is transpiring? Where to go? What happens? And we ultimately see Descaros, I'm not sure what exactly she was trying to do here. Like, she doesn't immediately kill him, because she does put her blade to his face, not to him, like, or through him. But in that instant, Ichi's me like, whoa, what are you doing? And immediately goes to stab her in the face, which is crazy, but I suppose, and it's interesting mainly because it does seem like a slight contradiction. Technically, she didn't attack him verbatim, she raised her blade to him, but I guess technically that would be death for death. You just need to show killing intent somewhat, and Ichi took that as enough to immediately swing. And once again, I'm going to half chalk this up to Ichi being empowered by Uro, and also the idea that Descaras is already super fatigued. The fact that in the first chapter he was able to swing with a backhand hard enough to actually pierce the barriers, I'm going to assume that he's just extra swole right now, and the power level will decrease. Unless Descaras is going to get crept immediately. But we do get to see that ultimately Descaras is mostly annoyed, and Ichi admits, hey, only wanted my head. And low-key, I ain't into that right now. And we see that he admits that he's kind of a slicing machine. He goes at it if he ever feels he's in danger. And we see that Descaras says, anyway, right now, you're in the literal worst situation possible, kid. Don't move, don't talk, don't even think about speaking any chance. I don't know why she would say this. Once again, I'm assuming this is going to be a more comedy-based series, because immediately he goes to say a chant, and he sends out Lazud, but of course, being empowered by the most powerful magic user, or one of the most powerful magics, he immediately levels an entire chunk of a mountain, destroys an entire forest. Now, Calc beasts, who don't exist yet, I'll give it maybe 50 chapters, if we make it that far. Never know, shouldn't jump. If we make it that far, someone's gonna have to calc this, because it's a crazy feat already. Once again, from leveling mountains to blasting off an entire forest with casual swings of a weapon in one chant, I'm very intrigued. And we end with one final fact, and a breaking of the rules of reality in the sense. As it's revealed, a side note, in this world, only women have an aptitude for magic, and thus only women can acquire and use magics. That's why they are called witches. It's widely believed that men can't use magic. But let's say, for example, there was a magic with a special power. That magic provided a trial that only a man could pass. Not only that, let's say a man with a mind and body well trained enough to handle said magic happened to pass the trial. Even in that extremely rare case, that man's chance of acquiring the magic would be a mere 0.001%. It's effectively impossible. Even if all that lined up, it would still take a miracle. And that miracle hasn't transpired. We now have Ichi the Witch, and I'm excited. Overall, a very worthy first W chapter. I will readily admit, this was pretty darn gas. Like I said, I am excited. I'll be reviewing this more consistently. This video was going to be 15 minutes. If you couldn't tell how excited I am for this series, even though I'm not sure how long it's going to last, because I've had my hopes raised by showing the series before that look good, only for them to get canceled, I'm excited. So let's wish this series the best. If you, and I say you because I'm confident only one person is watching this video, especially at the time that this is releasing relative to the release of the second chapter, no one's watching this video. But if somehow you made it all the way to the end, please leave wizard. Leave "You're a wizard, Harry." Just the full meme line. Just leave the full meme line. "You're a wizard, Harry" in the comment section down below. And thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on every videos that come to the channel. Also, I do want to have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1, get a month, and things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapters of all the other series I review, add the variations of all my videos, and become a $25 patron or a $25 member. You can order whatever video you want. Also, I do have a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, where you can drop 5 beans for a short video, 20 beans for a long video, or any beans at all. Any support is always greatly appreciated. Now, I'd like to thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off. I'd like to give a thank you to our $3 members: Sierra, Greyhound, Eternal Flame, NMA, Real Rare, Red Wolf 4765, Paris Arnold, Astro, Brandon Payne, and G Prosper. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, Encarnacion, Josh Brown, Ignia Lind, and A+A. And I'd like to give a big ol' thank you to our $7 members: Autumn Mornings Lazo, Fine, Zombie Hunter, and Austin Wimberly. Then I'd like to give a thank you to our $10 members: Robbie Uchiha, Jay Warrior, and AZ Void. Then I'd like to give a big ol' thank you to our $10 patrons: Overlord Zero, Joaquin Munoz, and Idem Okami.
And I'd like to give the craziest, juiciest, most next-level, quadruple, sloppy, toppy, next-level superhuman in beyond this world kidney having thank you to our $100 patron, or that guy with a pencil tier patron, Calvin Elder.